Welcome back, listeners, to Red Hunt, where I dive deep into the captivating tales of relationships shared by the Reddit community. I'm your host, Red, and get ready for an emotional roller coaster like no other. Am I the antagonist for threatening to cut my dad off for his comment to my little sister? I am a 23-year-old female. Throughout my life, my dad has consistently shamed me for being overweight. His hurtful comments affected me greatly when I was a child and a teenage girl. Strangely, his words never motivated me to lose weight. Instead, they led to increased emotional eating for comfort. I have a younger sister who is 10 years old. Since I no longer live at home, I don't know if my dad has ever made weight-related comments to her, unless he was talking about me in front of her. During a recent visit, I only visit regularly for the sake of my little sister. Otherwise, I would never go to that house again. We were watching a movie together. My sister was sitting between my dad and me on the couch. While we were eating some small snacks, my dad randomly put his hand on my sister's thigh and made an offensive comment like, "See that jiggle? You need to start watching what you eat, sweetheart." I was furious and wanted to throw something at him. It's one thing for him to say such things to me, a grown adult who is somewhat desensitized to his comments after years of enduring them, but to say them to my 10-year-old sister, it disgusted me. My sister didn't say anything, but I could see from her expression that she felt awful and uncomfortable. It made me wonder if he has said similar things to her when I'm not around. I know that feeling too well, and it's even worse when you're a young child who doesn't fully understand weight, fatness, and diet culture. Many of my traumatic childhood memories involve his weight-related comments towards me. At that moment, all I could think was, how dare he say that to her? How dare he try to plant these insecurities in her at such a young age? How dare he do to her what he did to me? I waited until later when we were alone, and my little sister was in her room. I confronted my dad and lashed out at him, calling him an asshole and a piece of shit for his hurtful comment towards my sister. I told him he should be ashamed of himself for attempting to destroy her self-esteem and self-worth, just as he did to me. I also made it clear that I have only maintained a relationship with him because of my little sister, but now I am willing to cut him off completely and spend time with her without involving him. He responded by calling me disrespectful, a disgrace, and a poor excuse for a daughter who dares to speak to her father in this way. I was too angry to care about his words at that moment, so I left to return to my own apartment. It has been a day and a half since the incident. I have been bombarded with messages from my mother, aunts, cousins, etc., all telling me that my dad informed them about what happened and that I should apologize for my behavior. I would appreciate external perspectives. Did I overreact? Was my reaction justified or excessive? Could there have been a better way to address the situation? Am I the jerk in this situation? Your dad's fat-shaming and disrespectful comments crossed a line, especially when directed towards your impressionable little sister. You stood up for her, and it's completely understandable that you reacted the way you did. Cutting him off and spending time with your sister separately seems like the best way to protect her from his toxic behavior. I am in a relationship with an addict and need to get away. I started dating my boyfriend when I was 18 and had just graduated. We moved in together very quickly. We hooked up a few times, and before I knew it, we were in a relationship and living together. Over time, I noticed that he would consistently get up from bed at random times during the night. Eventually, I followed him and discovered that he was secretly addicted to opioids. He would sneak away to take pills at night in private. I didn't confront him immediately because I wanted to be certain. As time went on, his issue worsened, and he started abusing Xanax, often nodding off on our bed or even while standing. He once made me watch him take multiple pills to show me who he really was. After learning about his addiction, I encouraged him to seek help. I later found out that he had relapsed a couple of months into our relationship and was sober when we first got together. This explained the rapid changes I had observed. He shared with me his backstory and how his addiction began due to pain-related issues. Around the same time, he started begging me for money. If I didn't give him the money, he would yell at me, belittle me, and threaten to leave. I always gave in, and it quickly turned into an emotionally abusive situation. He would lose his job and beg me for money. He would argue with me about giving him $100 to get through the day. He would demean me when I tried to say no, and when I gave in, he would act as if everything was fine. At one point, he stole over $1,000 from me and denied it. He even tried to involve me in getting his drugs. He would always yell at me over his pills, which led to frequent fights. The situation became increasingly worse. It has been an overall emotionally abusive experience, and I feel shattered and fearful. Recently, I have moved to my own place, and when I tried to break up with him, he manipulated me into thinking that things could work and that he would change. However, I no longer want to stay in this relationship. In my mind, it already feels like we have broken up. I know what I want, and I deserve someone who treats me well. He frightens me, and I don't know what to do or how to leave him, even though we now live separately. I want to pursue a different path. I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's really important to prioritize your own safety and well-being, so if you're feeling scared and want to leave, trust your gut. Reach out to trusted friends or family for support, and consider talking to a professional who can help you navigate this situation. You deserve to be in a healthy and loving relationship. How much is a healthy amount of effort in a relationship? I am an 18-year-old male, and my current partner is an 18-year-old female. We have been together since I was 16. Although I enjoy our relationship dynamic and she feels the same way, she believes that I don't put enough effort into spending time with her, giving thoughtful gifts, or remembering important occasions. Additionally, I suspect that she no longer finds me attractive because she never wants to engage in sexual activities, unlike when we first started dating. Since I haven't been in any other relationships and have never been interested in discussing them, I lack a basis for comparison in evaluating our relationship. It's possible that my lack of experience makes me an inadequate partner. I would like to address this issue, but it seems that everything I try falls short of her expectations. For instance, while she enjoys giving and receiving gifts, I don't share the same interest. On her birthday, I found a few small items that I thought she might like and also got her flowers, which she had strongly hinted at wanting. However, the gifts were not specific enough, and apparently, I didn't choose presents that would last or were tailored to her taste. I can explain the reasoning behind each gift, but it appears that this doesn't matter. In hindsight, I can admit that the gifts wouldn't have a long lifespan, but I thought they were cute, much like her. Oh well. This pattern repeats itself, and both of us end up feeling unappreciated by the other. On another occasion, I made a joke about how her conversations with her friends don't pass the Bechdel test, which upset her. I mentioned it again during a different conversation, trying to clarify why I found it amusing, but she felt criticized. I'm conflicted about what I should have done differently, as I didn't have a chance to explain myself before she became upset. However, I also didn't pay attention to her initial warning. I struggle to handle her tears whenever I make a mistake, especially when my intentions aren't malicious but still hurt her. This guilt weighs on me and led me to walk away, which obviously didn't help the situation. I returned a few hours later when she asked me to, but she was still unhappy. We spend about 2 days a week just hanging out, and we try to text each other every day. I am content with this arrangement since we are both in school, and she feels the same way until she suddenly doesn't. I feel like I have incredibly high standards to meet, but I'm uncertain if I'm simply being lazy. It always feels like everything is my fault and never hers, so I'm curious to know what others do in their own relationships and what factors make them successful or challenging. Although I may have painted a negative picture by focusing on our problems, please keep in mind that overall, our relationship is quite enjoyable. It sounds like you genuinely care about your girlfriend and want to improve your relationship, which is a great mindset to have. It might be helpful to have an open and honest conversation with her about both of your expectations and needs, so that you can find a balance that makes both of you happy. Every relationship is different, so what works for others might not necessarily work for you, but it's always good to communicate and make efforts to understand each other better. Am I the antagonist for not staying for lunch after my mother invited my cousin? My mother often hosted enchilada parties where she invited friends over to make red chile enchiladas. I'm from New Mexico, where Mexican food is popular. My mother is very outgoing, whereas I am more introverted. Anyway, one day we decided to have an enchilada lunch while my father went out to lunch with some retired friends. He didn't like Mexican food. I was looking forward to having lunch with just my mom, helped with the preparations, and went to the store to get some Negra Modelo. While I was out, my mother called my aunt's house to invite her and my female cousin over. I would have been slightly annoyed since I was looking forward to a one-on-one lunch with my mom, but I would have understood. Unfortunately, my aunt wasn't home, but my male cousin was. I didn't get along with him at all back then, and my mother was aware of it. However, she still invited him to join us for lunch. When I returned home, my mom said, "Oh, I invited male cousin to have lunch with us." And I responded, "You what?" Just then, the phone rang. I answered it for my mother and made a comment about how much of a jerk my cousin was. While she was on the phone, I said, "Well, Mom, I hope you have a nice lunch with male cousin, because I won't be here," and walked out. She pleaded with me not to leave as I was walking out the door. I walked around the neighborhood and stopped by a family friend's house to call home. My mom tried to be nice and invited me to come back, saying that everything was almost ready. I can't remember exactly what I said, probably that I would think about it. For reference, this happened a long time ago before cell phones were common, and I didn't have my own. I ended up walking to a nearby movie theater, watching a movie, stopping by a bar for a beer, and then went back home. At this point, I had calmed down and was ready to have a discussion with my mother about why I left. However, when I got home, she was very furious. This reignited my anger. She said something like, "This is my house, and I can invite whoever I want for lunch in my house." I replied, "Sure you can. However, I'm not obliged to join your lunch if I don't want to." I mean, at that time, I had been living on my own for several years. I still enjoyed visiting my hometown and helping with household chores and yard work, but it wasn't necessary for me to be there. Anyway, my mother stayed angry for a few more weeks, but eventually things calmed down. I guess she talked to a lot of relatives and friends about me walking out because it really upset her. Damn, that must have been a tense lunch. Family dynamics can really be something, especially when we have conflicting expectations. Good on you for taking some time for yourself though. Sometimes you just need a breather. How should I interpret my GF's actions, and what's wrong with this situation? My close friend Greg lives on his own. His girlfriend Susan called me last night when we were working with my girlfriend on her yearly project. She said she called Greg and the paramedics picked up. She said your boyfriend has passed out in his house. We have applied first aid and things are okay. We will take him to the hospital and we will call you back. Susan asked me to go check on Greg. I said I didn't know which hospital he was taken to, and we should wait for the hospital to call her. But she was so panicked, she thought Greg hurt himself willingly and insisted I go check his house. Susan lives with strict parents and maybe she couldn't tell them she was going to his sick boyfriend. Regardless of anything, I felt the rush of adrenaline and worry. And even if I could do nothing, I wanted to go to his house and at least be there. This is where my girlfriend came into the picture. She said she didn't like how Susan talked to me on the phone, and if she was his girlfriend, instead of asking me, she should have rushed to him. Susan did talk in a demanding upper level to down level tone, but I didn't care, to be honest. I was conflicted, because I believed she didn't want me to go, but I wanted to go. She tried to calm me down, but when it didn't work, she lashed out. She told me if I could be worried and rush to other people, I should have also taken her to her house a few weeks back on the evening she was feeling sick. I explained those two are not the same thing, and she specifically said that she was okay and could go home on her own. But I don't see Greg now and it's making me worried. If she wanted me to take her home, she shouldn't have said she was okay. But this ties back into another thing when I accidentally made it look like I wouldn't lift a finger for her when she was sick in front of her friends, which was not the case. But me being the male chimpanzee that can't connect dots sometimes didn't realize what I said meant that. So with this, after the quarrel, the hospital called my phone and asked me to come pick Greg up. My girlfriend said now, of course we go. Apparently Greg gave them my number to pick him up. I told Susan about the hospital on the way, and she arrived with her mom's car before we got there. They were taking Greg out of the hospital when we got there. I'm very relieved to see my friend in good condition. My girlfriend and I later talked about our feelings and how she felt she wasn't valued and felt like I was prepared to help someone else, but not her. I explained I thought those two were different situations. She said helping others is good and okay, but my priorities in life should be strictly my family, including her. She thought my moments of conflict were moments of worry for Greg. I was contemplating how to not make her feel bad and go at the same time, which may or may not be necessary. But this too, I couldn't tell her. Now we are normal-ish. We will be better. But I don't know how I should think about all this. Where was I wrong? Where was she wrong? In this situation, it sounds like you were caught between wanting to help your friend Greg and appeasing your girlfriend who felt neglected. It's understandable that your girlfriend wanted you to prioritize her, but it's also important to support friends in times of need. Open communication and finding a middle ground could help resolve this issue and address the underlying concerns. Am I the antagonist for not wanting my older sister as a bridesmaid? As background, I am currently 28 years old and female. I am adopted and my relationship with my siblings has not always been smooth. My younger sister, Kat, who is 24, is also adopted, and we have formed a strong bond in our young adulthood. However, my older sister, Bev, who is 38, and I have always had a difficult relationship. Our conflicts have escalated to the point where physical intervention was needed, and I moved out of my parents' house at 18 to avoid living with her. Since then, Bev has periodically refused to talk to me and has resorted to passive-aggressive behavior on social media and in our family group chat. She also talks negatively about me to others or removes me from her contacts until she needs something. For instance, I recall a time when she became angry because I was pregnant, and she was not. She already had one child at that time. She discovered that I was expecting a girl and intentionally posted about it on Facebook a week before my gender reveal. A few months later, she admitted that she did this out of jealousy. Surprisingly, she had saved my contact in her phone under a name like Lying Money User. I discovered this while she was showing me something on her phone. I am unsure why she would label me as such, given that I am financially independent and frequently treat her children to things. There have been numerous similar incidents. Whenever she is confronted about her behavior, she feigns innocence and tries to portray herself as the victim, often claiming that someone is misinterpreting or intentionally smearing her actions. I acknowledge that misunderstandings can occur, but the satisfaction she exhibits upon initially being confronted, and when she attains her desired outcome, makes her intentions quite obvious. She seems to relish the dramatic situations she creates whenever she is not the center of attention. Now, coming back to my current dilemma. I am currently in the process of planning my wedding. About a month ago, my mom asked me who I was going to choose for my wedding party. I shared that I wanted a few close friends and Kat to be my bridesmaids. She then inquired whether I planned on including Bev as well. I replied truthfully that I had not yet asked anyone but had no intention of asking Bev. Since that conversation, my mom has constantly lectured me about having Bev in my wedding party. However, I strongly disagree that Bev should be a bridesmaid. I tried explaining to my mom that Bev had previously expressed no desire to have me in her own wedding party, as she had mentioned to me multiple times. While I am aware that my decision might cause some conflict, I know that if I include Bev, all I will experience is snide remarks, attempts to guilt or manipulate me into doing things her way, and unnecessary drama. Weddings are inherently stressful, and I want to minimize any additional stress. My main goal is to enjoy the process of planning my wedding and marrying the love of my life. Would I be in the wrong if I stick to my decision and do not ask Bev to be a bridesmaid? It's your wedding, and ultimately, the decision of who you want as your bridesmaids is up to you. Given your rocky relationship with Bev and her history of causing drama, it's understandable that you want to keep your wedding drama-free and enjoy your special day without added stress. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.